Welcome bass family to another video. This is Everything Bass with Dale Titus, and we're continuing on with Understanding Intervals Unit 5. Today we're covering the perfect fourth, and then I'm going to show you the next interval, the augmented fourth, also as the diminished fifth, because it's important that way. And we're going to learn a new concept about how intervals move today. So if this is your first video checking out, I encourage you to stop and go back and check all the previous Understanding Intervals videos. They're short, and try not to power watch them. Just make sure that you watch Unit 1 and then practice those intervals, and then move on to Unit 2 only when you feel you understand Unit 1. Because if you can get in the habit of not moving on to the next concept until you have a really good grip on it, you'll be building a firmer foundation so that when you get really high into some really great concepts and really great improvisational ideas, the foundation will support you and won't crumble. So that's important. So we're jumping right in, not going to waste any time. I have a tendency to get a little gabby sometimes. But we're going to talk about the perfect fourth. The perfect fourth. So if we're using our friend the C, third fret on the A string, the perfect fourth is literally you go up a string. And I say up again that it's up in pitch. I know I'm heading down, but it's up in pitch. So we're going to play any root or tonic, go up to the next string. That's the perfect fourth. One of the simplest intervals to find. You can find them all over. You literally pick any note, play up to the next string, stay on the same fret, and you've got the perfect fourth. So now we're going to talk about the augmented fourth / also known as aliases the diminished fifth. And this is really an important concept. Just as when I taught you guys that if you have a major third interval and you want to make it a minor third, you lower it by a half step. You lower the pitch by a half step. If you have a major 7, you want to make a minor 7, you lower it by a half step. Opposite can be true. If you have a minor 6 interval and you want to make a major 6 interval, you raise it by 1 fret. So what do we do with perfect intervals? Perfect fourth, perfect fifth. Technically it's perfect octave, but it's not used a lot in common everyday conversation. But with the perfect fourth and perfect fifth, if you take a perfect fourth, so again, C, I go up to the F is my perfect fourth interval, and I want to make it, or I move it up, I should say, I move it up a step, it becomes an augmented fourth, an augmented fourth. Some people say a sharp 4, but it's actually more accurate and maybe less confusing just to get to know it as the augmented fourth. Now, likewise, if I have a perfect fifth and I lower it by a half step, that perfect fifth becomes a diminished fifth. I diminished it, I lowered it. So perfect fifth, I lower it a half step, becomes a diminished fifth. So right there, if this is new to you and you're like, but wait a minute, you just gave me 2 names for the same pitch. Yeah, I did. And that happens a lot in music. And you're going to get really familiar, maybe never comfortable, but you'll get familiar with the phrase enharmonic equivalent. The enharmonic equivalent means that it's the same pitch, but it has 2 different names. So an augmented fourth, in this case an F sharp, C to the F sharp, that's an augmented fourth, is also a diminished fifth, but we would call it a G flat. So just in case that kind of freaked you out, the perfect fifth is a G. C is the tonic, G is the perfect fifth. If I make it a G flat, that interval's a diminished fifth. Now, in a whole nother harmonic structure, if I am going from C to F, which is my perfect fourth, and I make that an F sharp, C to F sharp, in that harmonic structure, in that instance, and we'll learn about that later, but there's reasons why we would need to call that an augmented fourth. So right now, if you could just trust me on that, if you could just trust me that a augmented fourth and a diminished fifth based on the same tonic are the same pitch, but can have different names, if you can just wrap your head around that, you're cool. You got it. So really, we basically, Unit 5, now we have one more, you can go to Unit 6, and after Unit 6, you will know all of the intervals between the root and the octave. So I encourage you to practice these intervals every day. If you remember from previous lessons, I've talked about whatever today's topic is, focus on that for a couple days. Take a root. Let's just say you picked E flat. E flat. Practice finding the perfect fourth off of E flat and the augmented / diminished fifth off the E flat. And it's cool to say it out loud and actually, in relation to the augmented fourth and diminished fifth, learn both the names. Learn what one would be called if we call it the augmented fourth, and what one would be called if we call it the diminished fifth. And then go back and add it in with all the previous units. And when you do that, you're not going to let any of the previous lessons kind of atrophy. You'll stay sharp on all that information. And by the end of next lesson, you'll know all the intervals, so that when we're talking concepts of different scales and harmony and ideas to add tension, you'll understand what I'm talking about. I mentioned this before, but Vincent Breedice is a great music educator, was a great music educator, and he's famous for saying that review is a musician's best friend. And I wholeheartedly, absolutely agree with that. So even though you've watched this video, and you've watched all the previous, hopefully, all the previous Understanding Intervals videos, I really encourage you to go back and review those again, and go back through them. Just every once in a while, just check them out, and keep that information fresh. That's one of the reasons I keep them short, the videos shorter, that they're not 45-minute long videos, so that it hopefully encourages you to go back and review and strengthen up and reinforce, especially if you have any questions. Speaking of which, please put your questions down in the comment section. And I'm encouraging everyone to join in the conversation. I am going to try to check all the comments every night. I can't do it during the day, during the weekday. I have a job, and I respect my bosses too much to do this during that. So I only will check comments at the end of the day during the weekdays, and on the weekends I should be clear to do it unless I'm playing or anything. So please share your comments, share your ideas, ask questions. The whole community, I'd love to jump in. Let's all be respectful to each other about everything. And we should be supporting each other, helping everyone grow. Check it out. I've gotten more gigs from other bass players than I have from any other musician. More than any guitar players, even though there's way more guitar players than bass players. Bass players have referred more jobs to me. And that's cool, and that's what I want this community to become, supporting, helping each of us grow. Call me out and tell me I did something wrong, tell me I should improve something. I'm way into that. I'm really ready to make this the best community possible, everything bass. I really want this to be absolutely just a hub where we all can come. It's safe, no one's going to bag on anyone else, no one's going to make fun of anyone else. So that'd be awesome. So you can definitely support it. It helps so much if you could like this video, if you could subscribe to the channel and hit the bell notification so you're always notified whenever I put up new videos, which honestly will probably mostly be happening on the weekends. That's awesome. That means so much to me. If that's the extent of what you can do, it's massive, because it helps me grow. It'll help me get more support for the channel, and I can invest more into the channel, and ultimately just offer a lot more to you guys back. So that's great. If you want to go a little extra mile for me, and I really appreciate it, you can go to patreon.com/everything bass with Dale Titus, and there's a subscription option there. And if you subscribe to the channel, you can actually download all the written materials, so you can actually put it in print it out, put it in a binder, and ultimately end up with a pretty big lesson book that will give you a lot of content that you can review, maybe easier than reviewing on the phone, I'm not sure. Also, I always liked having stuff printed out. That's how I learned best, so I'm offering that to you. And of course, subscribers, I have plans for doing much more. There'll be exclusive content, there'll be audio files for you to jam along to, possibly some giveaways I'm working on, so hopefully that'll come through. Okay, today's encore item is near and dear to my heart, and that is Stuart Hamm's Kings of Sleep. Stuart Hamm, absolutely just one of those other, another one of these guys that just changed the instrument the moment he strapped it on. I'd buy an album of this guy tuning his bass, because it'd probably be the best I'd ever heard someone tune their bass. Stuart, on this album, did so many things that just changed the landscape of bass soloing, bass slapping, two-hand tapping, composition, chordal playing. This one I wore out so much. In fact, I had the cassette first, and that just, I just melted in my my player. And when it was available on CD, I got the CD, and absolutely, I have just played it endlessly. It's always in my car, mainly because I love driving to the song Black Ice. I don't like driving on black ice, but his song Black Ice makes me speed, quite honestly. And again, Stuart is just one of the most influential people in my life. I was honored to be able to meet him when I was down at Musicians Institute. I've known him for, gosh, Stuart, I think 20 years now, maybe a little more. And he's been super supportive, and I just love listening to everything he does and all his live performance videos, and he's just amazing, and he's changed my playing easily. So check out, if you don't know, check out Stuart Ham, Kings of Sleep, and give it a listen to. It's just great. And I've turned this on to guys that were into metal, and they loved it because there's an aggressiveness to some of the songs that Stuart plays that they appreciated, and they were able to kind of like absorb into their musicianship. And there's also some just amazing delicate melody playing. And if you're a player that wants to improve your soloing and your melody playing, this is a great CD to check out. As always, I mentioned before, if you have the means to do so, please invest in these artists, buy their CDs. You can go on their websites, or you can probably check out with a lot of the retail sites, order it. But if you could support them by buying even some of their old catalogs, especially some of their old catalogs, it really means a lot. And I'm speaking on their behalf. I know what it means when you guys have bought my videos in the past, and I can't exaggerate it. It just means so much. A simple purchase of a CD it will mean the world to Stuart. Okay, guys. Well, there you go. This is Unit 5, Understanding Intervals, and I'll look for you at Unit 6. Thanks. See ya.